Okay, let's unpack this. We often think of Napoleon Bonaparte's death as, a quiet ending in exile, a dignified collapse on some remote island.
Yeah, that's the standard picture, isn't it? A quiet fade out.
But the stack of sources you've brought us today, well, they paint a completely different picture. We're talking diaries, military records, even high-tech forensics spanning 2 centuries.
It's far from comfortable, the story they tell. Our mission today is really to move beyond those standard history books. We're doing a deep dive into those final 6 years on St. Helena.
Okay.
We need to explore the, frankly, appalling conditions he faced, the really bizarre medical decline, and the pretty overwhelming modern forensic evidence. It strongly suggests his death wasn't natural at all.
Not natural. So what are we looking at?
We're looking at a sophisticated chronic poisoning designed to look like stomach cancer, potentially state-sanctioned murder.
Wow. Okay. And the sources are key here. It's not just speculation.
Absolutely not. The richness is what makes it so compelling. You've got the emotional day-to-day stuff from his inner circle, his valet marchand, loyal officers like Bertrand, General Gorgo.
Right, the personal accounts.
But then you set that against the cold, official British military logs, the original autopsy notes, which are contested, to say the least.
And then the modern science comes in.
Exactly. Leaping forward, you have neutron activation analysis, even AI modeling, throwing objective data into the mix.
So the premise here is, well, it's pretty chilling.
It is. Imagine living your final years knowing, or at least strongly suspecting, you're being murdered bit by bit. Napoleon himself called it slow torture.
He knew or suspected.
He was convinced. We're essentially using 21st century forensic tools on a 19th century political crime scene, trying to finally figure out what really killed a man who, once held Europe in his hand.
We have to start with the place itself, St. Helena. Because the environment, the conditions there, they seem like the first weapon used against him.
Exactly right. This wasn't just exile. It was isolation designed for maximum psychological damage.
St. Helena, it's incredibly remote, right?
Oh, unbelievably. Yeah. 1,200 miles from the nearest landmass. It's basically an inescapable volcanic rock in the middle of the South Atlantic. A prison.
And his actual residence, Longwood House, that wasn't exactly a palace.
Palace. Not even close. It was a deliberate insult. It was this dilapidated, damp, rat-infested former farmhouse perched high up on this windswept volcanic plateau.
The descriptions in the diaries, they're pretty vivid. Horrific, actually.
They are. Constant decay. Lost Cases, who was with Napoleon early on, he wrote about it. The place was battered by wind constantly. Walls covered in green mold.
Green mold, wow.
And the windows leaked. All the time. When those tropical storms hit, the floors would literally become pools of dirty water.
So not just uncomfortable, but actively unhealthy.
Deeply unhealthy. Lost Cases was quite clear. He wrote that the worst prison cells back in Paris were more comfortable than Longwood.
Prison cells were better. That says a lot.
It does. It points to a calculated strategy. Slow psychological destruction. The neglect, the damp, the misery it created, this climate of disease. It ensured Napoleon was demoralized, physically weakened, long before, any potential poison even came into play.
And overseeing all this was Governor Hudson Lowe. He arrived in April 1816.
Yes, Lowe. His arrival marks a real escalation. The household themselves started calling it slow torture after he got there.
What was Lowe like? Why him?
Well, he was sort of the perfect man for the job, but maybe not in the way the British government fully intended. He was nervous, intensely paranoid. His unstaff described him as having shifty eyes.
Not exactly a reassuring description.
No, he'd mostly served in support roles, never commanded large armies himself. And he was pathologically obsessed with the idea that Napoleon might escape again, like he did from Elba, just 2 years before.
Right, the Elba escape must have haunted the British authorities.
Absolutely. So Lowe's saw plots everywhere. This paranoia led to just increasingly petty, humiliating restrictions. General Gorgo kept meticulous records of it all.
What kind of restrictions are we talking about?
Well, the sheer pettiness is key to understanding the stress level. Lowe immediately slashed Napoleon's annual household budget, cut it from 20,000 pounds down to 12,000 pounds.
For an emperor, even an exiled one, that's significant.
It was crippling and deliberately humiliating.
Yeah.
It quickly led to this situation where Napoleon, well, he had to sell off his own silver plate.
He sold his silver just to buy food.
His personal effects, symbols of his former life, his power, just to feed his small household. You can imagine the psychological blow. That single act Must have been devastating.
Intentionally devastating, it sounds like.
Oh, almost certainly intended to be. And the cruelty went beyond just money. It extended to medical care.
Oh, so.
When Napoleon started showing the first serious signs of illness, Lowe dragged his feet for months on request for a new, competent physician. He suspected any doctor sent by Napoleon's supporters would be a spy,
A spy.
or part of some elaborate subterfuge, as he put it, to help Napoleon escape. Security trumped basic human care every time.
And the surveillance was constant, I gather.
Absolute. British soldiers watched him constantly, even reportedly while he was bathing.
Well,
Total lack of privacy.
it's degrading.
It was constant violation. And the limits on his movement were just absurd. If Napoleon rode his horse just slightly beyond this tiny designated boundary,
Which wasn't very big, I imagine.
no, he could reach it in minutes. Alarm guns would instantly fire across a plateau, soldiers scrambling to check on him. He was never, ever truly alone.
But the peak of this, the real kicker, was Lowe demanding Napoleon show himself twice a day.
Yes. Lowe demanded he present himself to British officers just to prove he was still alive.
Yeah.
Still on the island. Like a caged bear was the phrase used.
A caged bear. How did Napoleon react?
He refused, understandably. Saw it as the ultimate degradation. Lowe then threatened to break down the doors of Longwood House to physically verify he was there.
Break down his door?
Bertrand's diaries show how this constant pressure just wore the emperor down. Watching him navigate this turned him into a shadow of his former self, long before any physical poisoning really took hold.
So if you analyze this whole environment, the house, Lowe's, the rules, what's the strategic significance?
It's fascinating, really. The neglect, the isolation, the calculated stress. They weren't just random cruelty, they were strategic weapons. They created the perfect conditions for a slow-acting crime.
How so?
Look, if Napoleon had been, say, quickly assassinated in Paris, it would have been a massive global scandal, huge outcry. But on St. Helena, anything could be blamed on the climate. Tropical diseases, the damp, the volcanic soil, whatever.
Plausible deniability.
Exactly. The environment guaranteed that any medical help would be slow, likely, biased. And Lowe had complete control over the information getting out, the immediate narrative, and crucially, the eventual medical records. It was effectively a purpose-built isolation chamber for a murder plot.
Okay, so the psychological stage is set. Then the physical decline begins, noticeably around 1817, and the symptoms his household recorded. They don't sound like just old age or a simple illness.
No, they really don't. They read like textbook indicators of chronic heavy metal exposure, arsenic poisoning specifically.
What kind of things were they seeing?
Louis Marchand, his valet, left these harrowing descriptions. Napoleon's famous energy, that almost boundless stamina, it just vanished completely.
He became lethargic.
Extremely. And he became dependent on taking long baths, sitting for hours in this copper bathtub. Apparently, it was the only thing that gave him any relief from this chronic, searing stomach pain.
Searing pain.
Radiating from his stomach. And Marchand described his skin changing color, turning this awful yellow-gray, the color of old parchment.
Yellow-gray, what does that indicate?
That parchment color suggests a combination of jaundice, maybe liver issues, and extreme paleness or anemia, highly symptomatic of something systemic and toxic.
And then there was the hair loss.
Yes, severe hair loss. His thick, dark hair started falling out in clumps, and Marchand, the loyal valet, he secretly started collecting it, saving these clumps of hair.
Why? Did he suspect something?
Maybe instinctively. It's hard to say for sure, but it was a crucial act, an act of preservation. Those hair samples became the single most important piece of forensic evidence about 140 years later.
Incredible foresight? Or maybe just loyalty?
Perhaps both. Now, the illness itself, it baffled the doctors who were actually there at the time. Dr. Barry O'Mara, the Irish physician assigned by the British.
The one Lowe was suspicious of.
Well, Lowe was suspicious of everyone, but O'Mara was initially the assigned doctor. He was the first to really document symptoms that just didn't fit any standard diagnosis he knew.
Like what? What did Napoleon complain of?
O'Mara noted this intense burning sensation in his stomach. Napoleon himself described it as feeling like a razor blade cutting from within.
A razor blade? That's graphic. That's more than just indigestion.
Oh, much more. It strongly suggests corrosive damage happening inside to the gastric lining.
And there were other symptoms, too, pointing towards, as you said, heavy metal exposure.
Yes, a whole cluster of them. Constant bleeding gums, which can indicate things like scurvy, sure, but also toxic interference with the body systems. Severe edema, so his legs were incredibly swollen.
Swollen legs. Okay.
And then this really disturbing cycle. Weeks of extreme constipation, followed by bouts of violent, debilitating diarrhea.
That cycle sounds significant.
That cycling pattern is absolutely key. Chronic arsenic poisoning often doesn't progress in a straight line. The effects wax and wane depending on the dosage being administered.
So higher doses cause one thing, lower doses another.
Right. Higher doses tend to cause acute gut distress, the violent diarrhea. Lower, more consistent doses lead to the systemic issues, the edema, the lethargy, the skin changes, hair loss. This constant cycling would have made diagnosis incredibly difficult. It mimics a fluctuating natural illness while maximizing the victim's suffering over time.
And the final collapse came in early 1821 February.
Yes, that must have been terrifying for everyone there. It was the final indication of massive internal damage. Napoleon started vomiting blood.
Vomiting blood.
Mixed with what Marchand described as looking like coffee grounds.
Coffee grounds. What is that?
That's digestive blood. It means the bleeding was happening high up in the digestive tract, likely the stomach or esophagus. It's consistent with severe, advanced corrosive damage.
Okay, this is where it gets really dark. Napoleon himself. He didn't just think he was sick. He thought he was being poisoned.
He knew, or at least he was utterly convinced. Remember, this was a man of immense intellect. He wasn't just passively suffering. He started reading medical texts available to him on the island.
Researching his own symptoms.
Exactly. Comparing his condition to historical accounts of poisonings, especially those involving slow-acting agents. He even wrote in the margins of one medical book, chillingly, "This is my daily bread."
This is my daily bread.
Wow. He wasn't vague about it. He explicitly told his companions he believed he was being killed by arsenic stirred into your wine, baked into your bread, dissolved into your medicine. He named the poison.
Arsenic. And he could taste it.
He complained of a distinct metallic taste on his tongue, which was also swollen.
Is that consistent with arsenic?
Yes, arsenic trioxide, white arsenic. The common form is often described as tasteless, but sometimes it can leave a slightly metallic taste, especially with repeated exposure or higher concentrations. His tongue being swollen is another symptom too.
So his awareness, his certainty led him to take action.
Extreme defensive measures. He started refusing food unless someone else tasted it first. He'd suddenly switch plates with someone during meals.
Really? Like in the movies?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And he became insistent on only drinking water from bottles that were sealed. And he would break the seals himself. He trusted no one.
He basically turned into a man haunted by the knowledge or the belief of his own slow murder.
Absolutely. Bertrand's diaries paint this picture of a man deteriorating not just physically but mentally under this strain, waking up screaming from nightmares.
Nightmares? About what?
Nightmares of faceless assassins literally pouring poison down his throat. It's just horrific to contemplate.
Yet, even in that state, he was thinking tactically.
It's incredible. It's a testament to his mind. Even as he was dying, he was focused on the future, on history. He begged Bertrand to make sure his body was properly autopsied after his death.
Why?
He was convinced the evidence of murder would be found inside him. He wanted it preserved for history. He seemed to know the official story would be a cover-up, a lie, and he was trying to plant the seeds for the truth to eventually come out, taking measures against the denial he saw coming.
So, beyond Napoleon's own convictions and symptoms, there's circumstantial evidence from within Longwood House itself, things that suggest an ongoing contamination.
Yes, the environment was clearly compromised, and not just by the damp and mold. The household records, particularly letters smuggled out, documented numerous really suspicious incidents involving food and drink.
Like what?
Things like wine bottles arriving at Longwood already opened, with the seals broken. Flour delivered to the kitchens that consistently had this peculiar bitter smell.
A bitter smell?
Yeah.
Arsenic.
Possibly. Or maybe something used to mask it, or just poor quality control that was exploited. Another incident involved a cask of preserved meat. It was found riddled with maggots shortly after arriving from Cape Town, suggesting it was either tampered with or stored improperly in a way that accelerated spoilage, perhaps in a contaminated area.
And there were times the contamination was actually visible. Someone saw something.
There was at least one significant incident. Captain Thomas Poppleton, he was the British orderly officer stationed at Longwood, a sort of liaison. He recorded finding a noticeable amount of white powder spilled near the food storage area.
White powder. Did they test it?
No. And this is crucial. Governor Lowe ordered it cleaned up and discarded immediately. No official investigation, no chemical analysis, Nothing.
That sounds like suppressing evidence.
It certainly looks that way. A deliberate cover-up right at the source.
And the proof of environmental contamination continues with the rats.
Ah, yes, the dead rats. This comes from Ali Saint Denis, Napoleon's Mamluk bodyguard. He kept his own independent records.
In Arabic.
Yes, written in Arabic, so they weren't translated or widely known until much later. His records were explosive. He reported finding 17 dead rats near Napoleon's personal water supply in a single week.
17. That's a lot of dead rats.
It's a huge number. And critically, he noted their symptoms before death, things like paralysis and violent convulsions.
Which are consistent with?
Classic signs of arsenic poisoning in rodents. This wasn't just bad luck or poor sanitation. It strongly suggested someone was deliberately introducing a lethal level of poison, likely arsenic, into the water system close to the house. Premeditated.
Okay, so the environment is toxic, things smell funny, rats are dying. But who's doing it? This is where Count Charles de Montholon comes in.
Yes. Almost all serious investigation, historical, behavioral profiling, forensic, eventually focuses on Montholon. He is history's darkest puzzle piece in this story.
Why him specifically? What put him under suspicion?
He had that lethal combination, access and motive. He was one of the very last high-ranking French officers to stay loyal and remain with Napoleon on St. Helena.
So he was trusted.
He was in the inner circle. Crucially, he controlled access to Napoleon's private rooms. And even more critically, he often prepared Napoleon's meals and drinks himself, especially later on as the household staff dwindled. He was the gatekeeper for almost everything the emperor consumed.
The gatekeeper, and there was something odd about his own health.
Yes, there are accounts suggesting Montholon seems strangely unaffected by food or wine that occasionally made Napoleon or other members of the household ill. That kind of resilience is highly suspicious in this context.
And then there's the personal drama, his wife.
Albine de Montholon. Yes, the situation gets even more complex. Albine was widely rumored to have become Napoleon's mistress on St. Helena. She left the island in 1819, possibly pregnant with Napoleon's child.
Pregnant with Napoleon's child, that adds a whole layer of potential. What, resentment? Jealousy?
A volatile mix. Personal resentment, jealousy from Montholon, maybe even leverage over Napoleon or others. It muddies the waters considerably.
But the strongest evidence against Montholon seems to be financial. Let's talk about that payment.
Ah, the money. Yes. This is where the circumstantial case becomes almost concrete. French historians, digging through archives that were sealed until the 1960s, found proof.
Proof of what?
Proof that Montholon received a massive payment, 2 million francs, shortly after Napoleon's death.
2 million francs. In 1821 money, that sounds like a lot.
It was an absolute fortune, a king's ransom, literally. To put it in perspective for you, remember Governor Lowe cut Napoleon's entire annual budget to 12,000 pounds.
Right, about 300,000 francs.
Exactly. Montholon received more than 6 times Napoleon's entire yearly allowance in one lump sum. This wasn't a retirement gift or a reward for loyalty.
Where did the money come from?
The sources were linked directly to the restored Bourbon monarchy in France, King Louis VIII's government, the very people who benefited most from Napoleon being permanently gone.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second. Couldn't just be a reward. He did stay with Napoleon for 6 years in awful conditions. Maybe the Bourbons were just being generous to someone who had, in their eyes, finally seen the light.
That's the traditional argument, the counter-argument. It's a fair point to raise. But the timing is just too convenient, and the amount is just too vast. Why give a former Bonapartist, even a reconciled one, such an enormous sum specifically right after Napoleon dies, unless the service rendered was facilitating that death?
The timing is suspicious.
Very. And then you have the clue from Montholon's own death.
To confession or near confession.
Right. He allegedly told his priest, his confessor, that he had a weight on my soul regarding the emperor. He didn't spell it out, no explicit confession of murder. But given the money, the access, the opportunity, the implication is heavy. Devastatingly clear, some would argue.
The whole scenario, the calculation involved, it even caught the eye of modern law enforcement, right?
Yeah.
The FBI.
It did. Back in 1982, the FBI's behavioral science unit, the profilers, they analyzed the case using the historical data.
What did they conclude?
They concluded it fit the pattern of an intimate assassination. Murder carried out by someone very close to the victim, someone with the opportunity, and complex personal and political motives.
And did their profile point to anyone?
They stated their profile matched Montholon almost perfectly.
Almost perfectly. Wow.
Based on the method, the likely motive, the proximity, the control he had, it all lined up.
Which brings us to the method itself. This wasn't a quick poisoning, it was chronic. Cycling.
Incredibly sophisticated and cruel. The evidence suggests the poison, likely arsenic, was given in controlled cycles. Increase the dose to make Napoleon acutely ill, bring him near death, then decrease it, allow a partial recovery.
Why do that? Why not just a lethal dose?
Two main reasons, tactically speaking. First, it maximized suffering. It was prolonged torture. Second, and crucially, it made the illness look like a natural disease that fluctuates, like cancer, which can have periods of remission and relapse. It created plausible deniability.
It required knowledge and malice.
Definitely. It suggests some medical understanding, even if rudimentary, and a profound level of personal hatred or cold calculation.
So, after 6 years of this calculated decline, Napoleon finally dies, May 5th, 1821. But the fight wasn't over, was it? The battle shifted to controlling his body, his legacy, the narrative.
It ramped up instantly. As soon as Governor Low knew Napoleon was dying, he increased the guard presence around Longwood, still paranoid about, a deathbed escape, a conspiracy.
Even then.
Even then. And he refused the household's request for a Catholic priest until the very final hours.
Why refuse a priest?
Fear. Fear Napoleon might make some dramatic deathbed accusation, confess something Low didn't want heard. He only relented when it was clear Napoleon was too weak to speak coherently.
What about his actual last words? Are they recorded?
They are, but they're heavily contested. It depends who you ask, which reflects the divisions and agendas within that small group. Marchand, the valet, recorded these fragmented phrases. France, the army, head of the army, my son. Which sounds, plausible for a man in neurological collapse.
But others heard different things.
Yes. Montholon claimed Napoleon's last words were a defiant military cry. Who retreats? Very dramatic. The Corsican doctor, Antimarchi, insisted he heard, I see my death. The truth is probably lost in those final moments, likely overshadowed by what people wanted or expected to hear.
Then came the autopsy, May 6th. Low needed a specific outcome here, didn't he?
He needed natural causes, specifically stomach cancer. The pressure on the doctors was immense. Dr. Francesco Antimarchi performed the autopsy, but there were 7 British doctors observing, essentially Low's witnesses.
And Antimarchi did find something wrong with the stomach.
He did. He found the stomach was severely ulcerated, damaged, with a large perforation. Visually, it appeared consistent with cancer. This was exactly what Low wanted. Death by natural causes, conveniently the same disease that killed Napoleon's father, Carlo. Case closed.
But Antimarchi himself wasn't fully convinced.
No. His own notes and later accounts highlight several crucial discrepancies, things inconsistent with just stomach cancer being the sole cause of death. First, the remarkable preservation of Napoleon's other internal organs. They were startlingly intact, almost as if something had protected them from normal decomposition. Second, his liver was hugely enlarged, about twice its normal size.
And that's significant.
Very. An enlarged liver is a classic symptom of chronic, heavy metal poisoning, like arsenic toxicity. It's not typically associated with death solely from stomach cancer.
So what did the final official report say?
The British doctors, led by a Dr. Thomas Short, basically strong-armed the conclusion. They insisted the report state death by stomach cancer. Antimarchi disagreed, fundamentally, but signed the report eventually, apparently under direct threat of arrest from Low if he refused.
So the medical record was compromised from the start, politically driven.
Absolutely. Scientifically compromised, politically mandated, and then things got even murkier.
Ow.
Key pieces of evidence went missing. Napoleon's heart and stomach, the organs most likely to show definitive proof of poisoning, they vanished. They were supposedly preserved in spirits, to be sent back to Europe with the family. But they were never seen again, almost certainly destroyed to prevent any future toxicological analysis.
Destroyed.
And then there's the really grotesque detail, reported by multiple sources. Napoleon's penis was apparently removed during the autopsy or shortly after.
What? Who would do that?
The story points to Abbé Vignali, the priest who finally attended him. Apparently, he later tried to sell it as a macabre relic.
That's unbelievable. Just layers of indignity.
Exactly. And the final political insult came at the burial.
The tombstone.
Low refused to allow the inscription Napoleon Bonaparte on the tomb. He insisted it only say General Bonaparte. A deliberate attempt to deny him his imperial title even in death.
How did the household react?
They refused, utterly refused Low's demand. So as a result, Napoleon's grave remained completely unmarked for years. Just a simple, anonymous stone slab in a valley on St. Helena.
An unmarked grave for the Emperor of France.
The ultimate humiliation. But the story doesn't end there. The real undeniable proof, the thing that blows the cancer theory apart, came almost 2 decades later.
The exhumation in 1840, when France brought his body back.
Exactly. When they opened that grave after 19 years,
Whoa.
the witnesses were stunned, absolutely shocked.
Why? What did they find?
They found Napoleon's body showing virtually no decomposition. None. His uniform was intact. His facial features were recognizable, perfectly preserved. He looked, according to witnesses, as if he had only recently died. The body was essentially mummified.
Mummified. After nearly 20 years in a damp grave on a tropical island, that's impossible through natural means.
Utterly impossible. A body in those conditions should have been skeletal remains, if anything.
So what's the scientific explanation? How could he be so preserved?
One word.
Arsenic.
Arsenic preserves bodies. In high concentrations, yes. Arsenic is a powerful biocide. It kills bacteria, fungi, anything that causes decay. It essentially pickles or embalms tissues, both internal and external. Scientists later confirmed this. People who die from chronic arsenic poisoning often remain remarkably preserved for decades.
So the poison used to kill him.
Is the very thing that preserved his body, preserved the evidence. It's the ultimate grim irony. The murder weapon became the key exhibit proving the crime. His body, incorruptible, became the most undeniable testament to his own assassination.
Okay, this is where history meets the lab coat. We move from the eyewitness accounts and the preserved body to hard chemical proof. Starting with that hair collected by Marchand, 1961.
Yes, those secretly saved hair locks became the key. A Swedish dentist, Sten Forshed, was fascinated by the poisoning theory and managed to obtain some of these authenticated samples. He initiated the analysis using a then cutting-edge technique.
Which was?
Neutron activation analysis, or NAA.
Okay, NAA. Can you break that down for us? Why is it so definitive for something like arsenic testing?
Sure. It's a great question because NAA is incredibly powerful for trace elements. Basically, you take a tiny sample, like a single strand of hair, and you place it inside a nuclear reactor.
A nuclear reactor sounds intense.
It is. The sample gets bombarded with neutrons. This makes the elements within the hair temporarily radioactive. Each element, like arsenic, then decays at a very specific rate and emits gamma rays with unique energy signatures. The equipment measures these signatures.
So it can tell you exactly what's in there and how much.
Precisely. With extreme accuracy. Even for tiny trace amounts, much more sensitive than older chemical tests.
And when Forshed tested Napoleon St. Helena hair,
the results were staggering. He found arsenic levels up to 40 times higher than what's considered normal or safe. Massive contamination.
40 times normal. Okay.
But even more important than the overall level was the pattern of contamination along the hair strands.
The pattern, what did that show?
Hair grows at a relatively consistent rate, about 1 centimeter per month. By analyzing tiny segments of a single hair strand, Forshed could create a chronological timeline of arsenic exposure.
Like tree rings, but for poison.
Exactly like that. And the analysis showed the arsenic levels weren't constant. They peaked and dropped in deliberate cyclical waves over time.
The cycling again?
The cycling. And crucially, these peaks in arsenic concentration lined up perfectly with periods when the diaries indicated Napoleon was severely ill, and often when Count Montholon had exclusive control over preparing his food and wine.
That's incredibly specific. It links the poison directly to the suspected poisoner's access.
It strongly suggests deliberate, controlled dosing over years. And to seal the deal, Forshed also tested samples of hair saved from Napoleon's childhood.
And
normal arsenic levels. Completely normal. This proved the massive contamination was specific to his time on St. Helena. It wasn't something he'd been exposed to his whole life.
Okay, so the hair confirms massive cyclical arsenic poisoning during his exile. Did the research stop there?
Not at all. Later researchers realized the picture might be even more complex. It wasn't just about ingesting poison. There might have been multiple delivery methods.
More poisons. Or different ways of administering it.
Both, potentially. Dr. Pascal Kint, a respected forensic toxicologist, re-examined the hair samples in 2001 using more modern techniques. He confirmed Forshed's arsenic findings, consistent with white arsenic, arsenic trioxide, your common rat poison. Tasteless, colorless in small doses.
Okay.
But Kint also found something else. Traces of cyanide compounds alongside the arsenic.
Cyanide as well.
Yes, which led him to conclude that multiple poisons were used. Perhaps to speed things up at the end, or maybe to induce specific agonizing symptoms at certain times. We don't know for sure.
Multiple poisons. The plot thickens.
And the delivery methods seem varied too. This poisoning campaign was meticulous, almost obsessively thorough. In 2007, researchers tested preserved wine glasses known to have been used by Napoleon at Longwood.
What did they find on the glasses?
Arsenic residue. But concentrated in patterns that suggested it wasn't just in the wine itself. It looked like it might have been added after pouring, maybe dusted onto the rim or dropped in just before serving.
Wow, extra doses.
Then in 2008, Italian researchers analyzed fabric from trousers Napoleon wore on St. Helena.
His clothes. They found arsenic in his pants.
Yes, and not just traces, but progressive contamination that increased over the years he wore them. This points towards external contamination as well.
External. How?
Maybe through his bedding being laced with arsenic. Maybe arsenic-based cleaning products used in his rooms. Perhaps even from Scheele's green paint pigment in the wallpaper, off-gassing in the damp, although that's debated as a primary cause. But it suggests environmental poisoning, too.
So he's getting it in his food and wine and potentially absorbing it through his skin or inhaling it from his surroundings.
It looks like a multi-pronged attack. They even tested other personal items. His snuff box, arsenic residue. His toothbrush, arsenic residue. The personal seal he used to stamp wax on letters, arsenic residue.
Everything he touched was contaminated.
Essentially, yes. The killers, whoever they were, created a constantly toxic environment around him, an inescapable molecular assassination attempt.
Which brings us to 2018 and artificial intelligence. How does AI tackle a 200-year-old cold case?
This was really groundbreaking. An AI system was fed virtually all the available data, the historical accounts, the diaries noting his symptoms day by day, the chemical analysis results from the hair, the autopsy discrepancies, Montholon's movements, everything.
And the AI's job was to find patterns.
Exactly. To look for correlations and patterns that a human researcher might miss, maybe due to bias or just the sheer volume of data. It could cross-reference subjective reports, like Bertrand noting Napoleon had severe stomach pain, with objective data, like a measured spike in arsenic in his hair corresponding to that same time frame.
That's powerful analysis. What was the AI's conclusion?
The system concluded with a 97% probability that Napoleon was deliberately poisoned over an extended period. And significantly, it indicated the poisoning was likely carried out by multiple individuals, acting either together or perhaps in parallel.
97% probability. That's pretty definitive for AI.
It's incredibly high. The algorithm highlighted subtle links like periods when Montholon was recorded being particularly active around Napoleon, correlating strongly with subsequent reports of illness and measured arsenic spikes.
So, given all this, the NAA, the cyanide traces, the environmental contamination, the AI verdict, what does this do to the older counter theories? The wallpaper, the medicine?
It really dismantles them as primary explanations.
Yeah.
Yes, the green wallpaper had arsenic, Scheele's green. Yes, arsenic was sometimes used medically back then, but those factors simply cannot account for the sheer scale of the arsenic levels found, nor the specific, deliberate cycling pattern revealed in the hair analysis.
The pattern is key.
The pattern is the smoking gun. The intentional spikes and drops, correlating with Montholon's access and Napoleon's reported symptoms, alongside the huge financial payoff. It points overwhelmingly towards deliberate, controlled, homicidal poisoning. The other factors might have contributed slightly to his overall toxic load, but they don't explain the core evidence.
It just seems incredible then, with this mountain of evidence, from diaries to AI, that the official story, the one most people still hear, is stomach cancer.
It's the power of a convenient narrative. The cost of acknowledging the truth is too high for some. But Napoleon, even on his deathbed, he saw it coming. He made one last tactical move.
His will.
His will, dictated just weeks before he died. It contains his final direct accusation. "I die before my time," he stated, "murdered by the English oligarchy and its hired assassin."
He named the English oligarchy and a hired assassin. He didn't name Montholon specifically.
No, not by name in the will, but the implication of a hired assassin within his household, given everything else, points strongly. And he knew what story they would tell.
What did he say about that?
He told General Bertrand specifically, "They will say, 'I died of cancer like my father.' It serves everyone's purpose," acknowledging the convenience of that lie. But then he added the crucial instruction, "Make sure someone someday tells the truth."
He wanted the story out. And the British government's records, what do they show about their attitude?
Well, the records that have been released show they were more than willing to see him gone. They were eager for his death. Classified documents, some only declassified in 1975, reveal clear instructions from Lord Bathurst, the Secretary of State for War.
Instructions like what?
Making it crystal clear Napoleon was never to leave St. Helena alive. One internal memo from late 1820 is chillingly blunt. It states, "The death of General Bonaparte would relieve His Majesty's government of considerable anxiety and expense."
Just cold calculation, relief from anxiety and expense.
And that general hope seems to have filtered down into specific foreknowledge, at least for Governor Low.
Low knew, or suspected.
There's a recorded statement from Lieutenant Colonel Basil Jackson. He documented Low saying, apparently in private, something like, "The French monster will be dead within 5 years. Natural causes, of course. I have assurances from the highest levels."
Natural causes, of course. That implies he knew the plan, or at least the intended cover story.
It certainly suggests foreknowledge of both the rough timing and the predetermined narrative. And this official denial, this silence, continues even today.
Yes, so.
The British government still maintains extensive archives relating to Napoleon's captivity on St. Helena under classification, citing national security for documents over 2 centuries old.
National security, after 200 years, what could possibly still be sensitive?
That's the question, isn't it? It fuels suspicion. The political motive for maintaining the denial is strong. Even now, if Britain admitted it, they'd have to confront state-sanctioned assassination. If France admitted Montholon's likely role, they'd have to confront deep internal betrayal linked to the restored monarchy.
So keeping the cancer story saves face for everyone involved, avoids accountability.
Exactly. On both sides of the English Channel, it's politically convenient.
Even the visual evidence, the death mask taken right after he died, seems to argue against natural causes.
Yes, forensic experts who've examined the death mask point to specific features. The gauntness, yes, but particularly the sharp, fixed lines around the mouth.
What causes that?
It's known as the rhizus sardonicus, literally the sardonic smile or bitter grin. It's not typically seen in most natural deaths. It's caused by involuntary muscle spasms, facial muscle contractions, often induced by certain types of poisons like strychnine or sometimes tetanus. It pulls the lips back into this fixed, grimacing expression.
So the mask itself might show the physical sign of poisoning. A frozen scream.
Some experts argue exactly that. It's the face of someone whose muscles locked up unnaturally at the end, not someone fading peacefully from cancer.
And finally, we shouldn't forget there might have been other victims here. Collateral damage.
Absolutely. The British soldiers guarding Longwood, the ones living in close proximity to this toxic environment.
They got sick too.
Numerous accounts mention the guards suffering from similar, though usually milder, symptoms, stomach issues, lethargy. Several of them died relatively young after returning to England. Officially, their deaths were blamed on generic tropical diseases they contracted on the island.
But it could have been low-level arsenic exposure?
It's highly likely they were collateral victims,
Mm-hmm.
breathing the same air, possibly exposed to the same contaminated water or environment created for Napoleon, poisoned by proximity.
So let's try and pull all this together. We have the diaries detailing the symptoms and Napoleon's own certainty. We have Montholon's suspicious access and that huge payment. We have the perfectly preserved body. We have the definitive hair analysis showing massive cyclical arsenic poisoning. We have traces of cyanide. We have the AI analysis giving a 97% probability of murder.
It's an overwhelming case when you stack it all up. The conclusion seems inescapable. Napoleon Bonaparte was systematically, deliberately poisoned over a period of years. He was the victim of a sophisticated chronic poisoning campaign designed to mimic natural disease, designed to allow for a perfect political cover-up.
Killed by design, not by disease or chance.
Exactly. The evidence points squarely in that direction. So the real question isn't if he was murdered anymore. The evidence says yes. The question is why? Why, after 2 centuries, is the official story still stuck on stomach cancer? Why is the truth still so inconvenient?
It makes you wonder about power, doesn't it? What powerful institutions are willing to do and willing to hide.
It forces us to ask why so much energy is spent, even today, maintaining what appears to be a verifiable untruth. What is being protected?
Perhaps admitting Napoleon was murdered by inches, by poison, requires admitting something deeply uncomfortable about the nature of power itself. That even supposedly civilized states might resort to assassination, to discarding law and morality when they feel fundamentally threatened.
And the ultimate irony remains. The poison meant to destroy him, to dissolve his body and erase the crime, instead preserved him, mummified him. It made the evidence of the crime immortal.
So, you, the listener, you now know the details, the evidence that 2 major European powers, Britain and France, have effectively worked for 200 years to downplay or conceal. What does that tell you about how history is written, about the official stories we are often taught? Something to think about.